Hi everyone, today I'm going to walk you through how to make a beaded keychain or a beaded lanyard and different ways on how you could finish. Okay, so for supplies you'll need will be obviously some seed beads here in the colors that you're going to want to use. I'm using 10-0 check seed beads. You will need some rope. I have bought the diamond braided nylon rope. I got this from Home Depot. And where's the size? Here was the size, 3/16 of an inch. And for one wristlet, you need about 15 inches, although I will probably be using a slightly longer piece because that'll allow me to make sure that my pattern works out evenly, and then I can just cut off the little extra bit if I don't need it. You will need some thread. You will need some beading needles. You will need your keychain ring. I'm actually probably going to use a smaller one than this, but I don't know where they are at the moment. Optional if you want to attach a little clip to the end of your key ring. And I'm going to be showing you two ways on how to finish. And for finishing, you'll need a little piece of leather. This is way too much. I'm just showing you a little piece that I have right now in whatever color that you want to use. And then you'll need some Glover leather needles. You can do it with the beading needles as well, but then you'll need some pliers or something to help pull through, and it'll be a little bit more difficult. But if you have some leather needles, that'll help you. And a little bit of sinew is also helpful. You can use the thread as well, but I have some black sinew here because I want it to match nicely with the leather so you won't see it as much. So depending on if I decide to use the black, I'll use the black sinew. If I go with something lighter, then I'll use a lighter color sinew. All right, and so then the next thing, if you want to, you can decide on what pattern you're going to do. And I like to draw mine, just a rough, really rough example of what I'm going to be doing. So, you can just grab some felt markers if you have them and use them to help you kind of sketch out what you're going to do. Now, once you get started and you do the first section, you'll be able to measure and see how much, rope you might actually need. I'm thinking about doing 3 rows of yellow, 3 rows of orange, 3 rows of red, 3 rows of black, but I'm going to have to kind of see as I go if that's enough of what I want to do, if it's going to take up too much space or not. All right, so let's get started. Sorry, one more thing I forgot to mention is you will need a lighter. It comes in handy for burning your ends, and also the end of this starts to fray. So if you just melt the ends of this, the plastic will form a little seal on here and keep it from unraveling. You could also just put a piece of tape on the end if you're not 100% comfortable with using a lighter. Okay, so how we start this off is depending on which way you're going to finish, you have to decide where to start up on the rope. So if you're going to finish by doing where you put the ring like this and you curl it up like this, and then this will get all sewn together like this, and then you'll take a little piece of leather and you'll wrap it around this part here. If you're going to finish this way, then you need to start up about 2 inch, like however long you're going to need for your little wrap. So you can just do a test, and so maybe you're going to start right there. If you're going to do it where you make a little pocket like this for your ring and glue it on like this and then sew the sides together, then you only need to leave a very little bit on the end here. So you're going to have your ends even, and then this will go like this. So it just depends on which way you want to finish. Okay, so I'm just going to start right about here. Just leave myself a little bit of room here, and I'm going to go through the cord. And I've put a fair size knot on here. Like I think I did it 3 times to get a bigger knot so it won't go through. And then you can actually burn off this little tail before you get going. All right, and you can push it down. And then to make it more secure, you can wrap it a few times here, pull it tight, and then you can go through it again. All right, and you could go through it another time if you really want to. I like to go through the string here to make a knot. Okay, so there's your starting position. Now the next thing you might want to do is just get an idea of how many beads it'll take to go around. I think for me it was taking 11 beads. Okay, so you can just load a bunch of beads on. And you can count how many beads you have on if you're doing a consistent amount. But for the purpose of this, I'm just going to load a bunch on just so I can show you how to start. Okay, so when you're ready to start, you're going to make your beads tight. So you just hold them on the end here, push up on them to make it nice and tight. And you can put this string either to the right or the left, depending on if you're right or left-handed and what's easiest for you. And then you're going to roll the cord. Okay, so you're going to roll your beads around the cord. And actually having a longer piece of at the end here would make it easier, because when you have a short end, it is hard to have something to hang on to here. Okay, so you roll it, and then you can keep pushing the beads up with your thumb until they're tight like this. All right, and then you're going to hold the thread there with your thumb. And actually I need to hold it with the other hand because I'm right-handed. All right, then you're going to take your needle and you're going to go through right at the very bottom of where you finished. And you're going to go right through the cord and try to go through where there's some resistance. It'll help make it tighter. So you go through and you come up through these 2 rows here. Okay, bring your needle up through those 2 rows and then pull this tight. All right, so you want your beads to be tight. Now in the beginning, there's nothing on this end to hold it, so it might move slightly. Okay, so you do that. Then you can go through the last 1 or 2 beads. I usually go through the last 2 beads here, like that. And to get into the ready position, I like to call it, so that the string is coming out the bead, and then you can just keep adding more beads in the same row. All right, so then that's all you do, is you just add more. And like I said, you might be counting, so you might stop and count how many you have on here. But for this demo, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to show you the technique of how to do it. Okay, so I've got that. And now I'm back here again. It's just going to continue right from where the other one left off. If I was doing a different color now, well, then you would just have a different transition, okay? And then you roll. And then you make sure all your beads are tight on there, and you push this over against the next one. All right, and then you can hold the thread down with your thumb. And so I'm going to go in where the bottom is there and go through the cord. Approximately 2 beads back is where you want it to come through. And then you pull it through. If you want to, you can try to rotate them a bit so that they're nice and tight, and then you're going to go through the last 2 beads again. Go through the last 2 beads, so you're ready to begin adding more beads. And that's all there is to it, okay? And you're just going to keep doing it all the way down, changing colors where you want to change colors, and that's it. Now, some people will do an extra wrap of the string. So if you find that after you roll your beads on here, and if you have trouble holding this in place with your other hand, you can just roll it one more time with the string, just the string wrapping around it like that. And that helps to hold it in place a little bit. The only thing I noticed with doing that extra wrap of string is that if I didn't have this tight, then it's harder for me to adjust it when I go through here like this. When I go through the bottom bead into there and I pull this through, if for whatever reason this wasn't like the way I liked it and it wasn't tight enough, and I try to pull this and do some corrections, I can't do the corrections very well because I did that extra wrap of string. So it'll depend. Most of the time it works out fine. Okay, so I started this one off in blue just so it was easier for you to see me starting it. But now I'm going to be switching over to the one that I am going to demonstrate mostly in this video. And it started off in white, and it's hard to see the white beads against the white thread. So in case you're wondering why all of a sudden now we have white, that is why. Okay, so now I'm going to start on with my pattern here, which is going to be the yellows. And I think I'm going to try to do about 3 rows of yellow and see what that looks like. So that'll be approximately, if one row is about 12 beads, it'll be 12 times 3, so about 36 of each color. So I am going to go with 36 yellow. Okay, I've got my 36 on, and you know what? I'm just going to continue on with the next color, which is going to be orange. And so now I need 36 orange. Okay, so I just skipped a little bit and I've got my 36 on here now too. So at the moment I've got 36 yellow and 36 orange. Okay, so now I've got this much at once. Okay, I've just kind of wrapped it around my finger like this just to give me a little bit more strength, and I'm just going to roll this now. I'm going to go through the rope at the bottom of that bead, about 2 beads back. You probably can't see, but I'm kind of under here holding it to get a little bit more tension. And then when I get closer and closer, I kind of let it go there. All right, and then I'm going to go back through these 2 beads. To be in the ready position. All right, so now this is what we have going here. And I'm just going to go now with 36 red and 36 black and can keep doing the same process. Okay, so now that I've got one section done, I can use this now to figure out how much white space I want to have in between these sections here so that it'll work out, because I would like these to kind of be even at the end. So I've measured this, and this is actually about a 1-inch section here. Just the colored part is 1 inch. So if I figure out that'll be my ends there like that, then I'm going to, I obviously would like to have the other section of 1 inch there. Oh, I'm out of camera again. I'd like to have the 1 inch section of color up here. And I could actually take a pen if I want to and kind of mark off that 1 inch here. And then I want to get another colored section in between here. So then I can measure approximately how much white I'm going to need to put in between these 1 inch sections. Or maybe I might even be able to fit in a couple more of these colored sections. I'm not sure. So that's basically what you know, once you've kind of started your pattern, then you can spend the rest of your time mapping out how much more you're going to need to make it so that you'll end up in the same spot at the end. Like I want this to match this at the end. So I'm going to figure that out, and then I'm just going to continue on doing the same thing that I did here until I get to the end. I thought I would just show you where I'm at right now. So I've done my 2 sections of color here, and then I've decided I'm going to change the pattern slightly. So when I went up to the top here, I wanted to figure out where my halfway point is going to be. So that's going to be my halfway point. And so now when I'm working my way back down here, I'm going to try and match this side to this side and this to this, so that when it's on your wrist, it matches. My original pattern, I was just continuing to do this pattern, and then it would have been upside down over here. So what I ended up doing was adding an extra black. So now I have black on that side, black on that side. And so now when I come back down, I'm just going to do this pattern here. And having the 2 blacks kind of disguises the pattern that I originally was doing. So yeah, so now I'm just going to finish doing that. And when I get down to here, I will come back and we will finish it. Okay, and if you want to make a lanyard size, I was using approximately 39 inches, but you can wrap it around your neck and just double check on the length that you want. But I did want to point out that when you're dealing with a really long piece and you're working on this and you're trying to twist this, I found that my thread with the very long piece would just get all wrapped around here. So what I discovered is if I just put an elastic here, I can roll this up, and then when I'm doing my twisting, this will just flip as I'm twisting over, which is really nice. And here's another tip: if you're trying to do an even amount and you know it's approximately 36 or around there, once you get them all stringed on, you can just take your needle to count. Like you can just keep going like this to count 2 at a time. So when you run out of thread and you have to get a new piece, what I like to do is finish it a little a ways. So I just bring my needle over here, and then I've ended my thread just a little bit over. And then when I start up again, I am going really close to that spot. And I'm going to go through about 3 times just to make sure it's on there. But I'm going to use that tail of the previous one just for a little extra security and tie these two together. Okay, and once they're tied together, you can take the good string that you want to keep using and move it more out of the way here to where you need to begin. So I'm going to move it off to the side there so I don't accidentally cut it off. Okay, and then I've already trimmed it once, but I can trim this a little bit shorter. Now this string's out of the way that I'm going to be using, and then I can just burn these ends. All right. Okay, and then I'm going to bring my needle through the first one to get back into the ready position again, and then I can continue going. Another little tip is I try to, like, where the transition is. Okay, so right here, where this transition between that white bead and the yellow bead right there, I try, in my case, I'm trying to get approximately 3 rows of these colors. So when I'm doing this one, I'm trying to end at that same point so that the next color will also be even. So like right now where it is, I've got a few too many beads on. I want to take off about 3 beads so that I end right about there. Okay, so I'm going to, let me see, where was that point again? It's right there. Okay, yeah, so I want to take off these 3 beads now. Of course, you don't have to do this. This is just me wanting to have kind of an even representation. And I've been finding that using the check seed beads size 10, that when I'm doing these sections here that are approximately 3 each, that three wraps each, that I'm needing minimum 36, but often I would have to add 2 or 3 more beads to get them to line up in the same position. So just let me finish this here, and I just want to show you an example. So like if you look on this one here, when we're looking from this side, this looks like it's an even 3 yellow, 3 orange, 3 red, and 3 black. But at some point on the rope is where you're going to have the colors joining. So if I flip this over to this side here, you can see that I tried to do it so that the transition happens in the same spot. So here's the black red, and then over here is the red orange. So they both transitioned at the same spot, and same with when I switched over to yellow. Okay, so I got that orange and that orange. So basically they were meeting up at the same position. The only spot that I obviously missed paying attention was this right here. I had 1 extra black. So this transition happened a little higher than where I did these transitions. And like, you know, it's not that important, but I'm just saying that if you do kind of want to have that same look, then you can try to do that when you're doing your transitions. And it didn't happen on all of mine, but once I kind of noticed it, I was like, yes, I want to try and make that even. So now I'm not sure if, let's see. Yeah, so this one is looking, once I bunch this up again, that it's going to be stopping at the right evenness. So I'll do that when I'm doing my next color. Okay, so same thing. I just did the orange, and now I've started it there and ended it there, so it's even. So no matter which way I turn this, I'm seeing 3 rows, except for when we get to this part, and you're seeing a bit of 3 rows down and 3 rows up, but at least it's even. Okay. So if you're finding that you have some sections that are kind of, I don't know, have more spaces between them, and they're a little bit bunched up, one thing that I found that's helping with that is when you, after you finish wrapping, do your usual wrap the beads around, and you do your usual go through the bottom bead. If you can try to go through a part of the cord that's tougher, has more resistance, it'll hold the string in place better. Sometimes I go through an easier section and then I notice that it won't hold as well. But another thing you can do as well is also make sure that you're pulling it tight. But then if you want to, you can go through again before you go back into the ready position. Like you can just go through one more time into the cord, not through the beads. And then I'm going to go through here to make a knot. And this is only if you're finding that your sections are not staying nice and tight. Okay, so now I've done that, and when I pull on it a little bit, it does tend to help keep my beads a little bit closer together. The edge one is always going to be loose until you put more beads beside it, so don't be worried about that. Okay, and then you're going to go in through a couple beads to go into the ready position again. I will say that I've noticed that these purple beads, which are a metallic, they're metallic beads, they're definitely a lot harder to work with, and I've been finding I'm having a lot more gaps and weird bumps and issues that I'm having to try to correct. These, I think they're just called opaque ones, are a lot easier, I find, to work with, and usually those sections are pretty good. But whenever I get to this metallic purple, maybe they're a little bit too slippery with this extra coating that they have on here. And I'm not sure what it is, but for some reason, every time I get to the purple, it's I'm having a lot more trouble getting them to be nice and even. Okay, so I think I've finished where I want this to be now. And I'm just going to show you 2 different ways that you can add keyring on. One is to take this one that I left a little bit longer here and fold it up. Well, actually, you can put this on first. Put the key ring on first, and I'm just going to fold that up and sew it into a loop. And actually, since I've got the string coming out on this side, I'll also attach this side as well at the same time. I actually might just wrap this first just to help me get this started here. Okay, and I'm just going to like simply sew this together. I can get that piece of string that went too far over here. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to work on sewing this back and forth a few times. And my needle just came unthread, so I'm just going to stop there for now because I'm basically just quickly giving you an idea of how this is going to work, because I'm going to actually finish this one a different way. Okay, so then you're going to have that like that. You've got your loop there, and then I'm going to trim this down, make this like a little bit shorter here, so that'll be out of the way. I'm not going to do it right now though, because I'm going to be finishing another way, but you can get the idea. You would trim this down, okay, so that'll be short. And if you want, you can take your lighter and burn the ends, and it'll be sticky when you first burn it, so you can push this down to this. Okay, so then you're going to get yourself a piece of leather, and you will wrap it around this part here where you've sewn it all together. Okay, and you can wrap it around, and you'll cut it to the exact dimension that you want. You might want to have the seam on the side, so I'd probably cut it like right about there. All right. And then, so you'll have it like right about here. And then you can also, before you wrap it, put some glue under there. And then you can either just have the glue sealing it, or you can get a Glover needle and some sinew and just do a light stitch there. Okay, so that would be the one way that you can do it, right? And again, this little tail here would have been cut short, so it wouldn't be there. Okay, so you do that. Now the reason, and that's the one way you can do it, but I'm going to do it, I'm going to do this instead, where I loop the leather on and put this on. So right now I'm just going to undo my thread here, because like I said, I didn't want to do it this way. Okay, so, and I had already tied this off earlier when you didn't see it, so I can just snip those and I can burn the little edges. Okay, so I'm going to do a little black piece of leather, and I'm going to wrap my ring there. And then, so I'm going to figure out about how long I want to have the strings before I cut them. So I'm probably just going to overlap on the beads just slightly. And I want to leave some room so the ring can turn if we want it to. So probably about there. So these should be better scissors. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So that was maybe a little bit shorter than I wanted, but that's where it's going now. Okay, so now I've got my two ends there. And what I'm going to do actually is figure out which is the nicest looking side here. So I think I like that one. And then I want, you can kind of twist it the way you want. So I'm going to have it more like this, I think. Okay. And then those two are going to match up as well. So I'm going to twist this until I like the look of it, until it's matching like this. Now you can sew these together so that it doesn't move on you, but what I'm going to do is burn my ends, and then when they're still hot, I'm going to squish them together, and that'll hold it together as well. And then it's a little bit hot, but I can start to squish those together. Help hold that. And I'm going to get some more needle and thread right now and thread this together. And then I'm going to, I've got my little ring in here after that's done, because it obviously, I waited too long and it didn't stick together. So and then I'm going to put those in there with some glue, and then I will glue it shut like this. And then I'm going to take my Glover needle and sew on this side, and I'm going to sew on this side, and that is how this one is going to end up. Okay, while I'm waiting for this to dry before I'm going to do some sewing, I wanted to make sure I just do the glue in the center and not on the edges, because then it'll be harder to sew. So hopefully my glue has not spilt over. But I just wanted to point out something, that if you're doing your work and you notice you go back and you're looking at it and you're like, oh, wait a minute, what happened here? For some reason, the beads weren't snug there, and now I've got a gap there. So all you have to do is, you know, get your thread again and just go back in here, you know, like you would, like you were starting out. And just get a good start on there. And actually, I'm going to burn off this little tail again first. Okay, so here I am. I've gone back into that place. And now all you got to do is find the, all you got to do here is find the first bead and go through it so that you're like in the ready position again. And then add however many beads you think will fit in there. So I think it might be 2. So just let me try 2 to begin with. And I can just fill in that gap. So I've got 2 on here. And let's see. Yeah, I think 2 will work nicely. So I've got the 2 on there. Then I'm just going to go in. Is this focusing here for you guys? Let's see. I hope that's focusing. So I'm just going to go back in through that next bead to form like a chain. And then those 2 beads just go into that empty spot there. And now you don't even notice that you have an empty spot there. And then you're just going to have to, you know, tie it off again off to the side here. Just go through a couple times and make a knot. Go through the loop. Make a little knot. I'm going to do that a couple times. And then, yeah, I fixed that spot. And if it happens in a few spots, I just lost my needle, so I'm just going to do this by hand here. So anyways, there you have it. It's that gap is now fixed, and you can check for any other spots where you might be able to add a bead or 2 if you had some space in there. All right, I've got some nice black sinew here, artificial sinew, and I'm just going to sew this up now. I'm just going to go back and forth. I like to use the table a lot. That's why I have this protective cover on. But otherwise, you can use whatever helps you push through. Okay, so here it is finished. This is the way it looks. And if you want, you can add another extra clip on there. And so that was the one way that you could finish. So thank you very much, everybody, and take care as always.